Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. It's Friday, so that means it's Q&A day, and we've got some questions and a great panel assembled. Alexander, what's the first question?
First question this morning is coming from Clive Kitchener in British Columbia, Canada. Recommendations, please, for a spinning HDD, 8 terabytes or so. I recall hearing something about a red, something from, and a few other names and designations known, maybe a rock solid, or as rock solid as these things can be.
Tom.
Well, the red you're hearing about is from Western Digital. It's the WD Red series. It's great for NAS devices. I'm running about 20 of them.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends. What is the circumstance? Is this a single drive? Is this going to be a stack of drives? Do you need this drive to be as performant as humanly possible, under the constraints of 8 terabyte mechanical hard drive? Questions abound. If you're listening, please post another question so I can refine.
Chris?
So you could buy the best hard drive in the world, and it could fail in the first 10 minutes, right? So it's always a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot, right? And so if I'm looking for the most reliable, where I'm going to start is Backblaze. Backblaze every year releases the status of the drives they use, and there's a thing. It's here are all the drives we use. This one failed this many times. This one didn't fail at all. So that might be a good place to look to find one that is possibly pretty reliable.
Chris?
Yeah, I'll tell you from experience, these boxes behind me are not just a prop. Each one of those has 6 hard drives in it. This is a portion of our archive system, and this is let me see here. This is my database of archive drives, and each one is scanned into it. Since COVID, we started labeling what city they live in. And no, we don't have 2 copies of everything. But we have over 300 of these. Let's see, where's the end of the list? Hold on. Currently at 320. They are all the same drive. We buy Seagates. We buy 7200. The red are more like network or enterprise drives. And in nearly 20 years, we've lost one of them. And one of the companies like the Backblaze or whatever, they actually they do an annual study, and they say that the Seagate drives that I buy are one of the worst. But I've lost one in 20 years, so
and Clive
decide for yourself.
And Clive mentions in the chat that he's looking at using this for backup of his photo library. In that situation, you do have performance isn't as much of an issue because this is kind of cold storage, but the advantage of buying, whether it's an Iron Wolf or a Western Digital Red or one of these NAS or enterprise-grade drives, as Alexander put in the chat, is the mean time between failure on the drives. It's the how reliable, how much additional testing has been done into that drive. And no matter what drive you buy, no matter how much they say that the drive is performant, you may be like in the situation that Chris is in, where you have the Seagate drive that's supposed to fail at a higher rate, never fail, and then you bought the outlier of the enterprise grade drives that did fail. So you still need to have a larger backup strategy in place in terms of having 2 copies of those things, making sure that there's either in a RAID or you can build it yourself, you can do a Synology, but some sort of redundant storage so that you're not putting yourself at risk. Jason?
Obligatorily, now that you've clarified, Clive, I will give the standard, it doesn't make sense until it's been turned to 11 office hours answer. If you are doing this, I need to back up my insert thing here. I need a version of my, keep in mind, a backup is only as good as its recency. You're never going to do this as frequently as you're going to change it. And as such, you should get a Synology Synology NAS drive and, put 2 of the 2 8 terabyte drives in there and never think about it again.
The only other thing I'll mention about photos is that while not a replacement for a in-your-house backup solution, if you're managing your photos in Lightroom, because Apple still hasn't released a new aperture, you can back them up to the Adobe Cloud. Now, if you have a very large library, you're going to be paying for that as sort of a yearly thing, but having that one backup be off-site in a different format, in a different way, means that you don't have to worry about potentially losing that stuff. And if you are in the situation like I am, where you have been entrusted as the family historian, and so you have all of the digital negatives, all of the digital scans of all the negatives, and all of the early digital photos that came out, and whenever somebody wants to find something, they come to you and say, hey, do you still have that picture? It becomes a pretty easy math problem to say that responsibility is worth whatever fee that I'm paying to have 3 or 4 terabytes of storage on Adobe. Next question.
This one's from the QR code. Shima Herv in Kigali, Rwanda is asking, hello, I have a question about Teams meetings. Does Teams support a live interpretation feature similar to Zoom where interpreters can be assigned to specific languages? How to do it? Thank you.
Jason.
Okay, when I read this the first time, I didn't understand that what you meant was a live interpretation, meaning something like an interpreter being in its own channel. So I'll answer this as I read it, which is yes, Teams can do recorded.
Oops, Jason muted himself by accident, but
Sorry, yep, more actions and then record and transcribe.
The other thing to look out for is the live interpretation feature is one of those ones within Teams that Microsoft has behind not a paywall per se, but is behind a certain level of license. So often it's M365 for business users, and you are at either, is it an E1 or an E3 or what have you, that feature is enabled. So Jason's taking a look at some of where the settings would be. If you don't see that setting within your Teams, it's possible that you need to be in a different level of license with Microsoft to enable that feature. Next question.
This question is coming in from the QR code. Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California is asking, speaking of space, anyone else watching the marathon of U.S. space history content on C-SPAN this weekend? Lots of great interviews and historical films about the space program from the archives to today.
Jason.
Were we speaking about space?
I am now. I don't have cable TV, but I think I can just stream it.
Even though C-SPAN is mostly boring, I do enjoy the stuff on C-SPAN and PBS when they do these retrospectives of going to the archives. And there's a lot of excitement around, the history of space travel now that we're, sending an exploratory mission back up to, set up getting back to the moon. I told Fenwick back before the show what we really
You say
need
back to the moon. You say back to the moon like we've been there before. Come on. This is the first
that's
time.
That's right. I saw Fly Me to the Moon. That's fair. But what Chris and I were talking back to before in the pre-show was I'd really like to see something like a 24-hour stream. I know you can get the Computer Chronicles stuff on archive.org. But I want someone to just program it for me. Like just do a best of, it's like a lo-fi girl where I can just turn it on and put it on in the background and then see the handiwork. If only we knew someone who knew how that really went down.
You know what we could do? What if we did like a retrospective watch party where let's pick a day of the week or like Thursday evenings or something like, hey, we're going to watch an old episode of Chronicles together. I mean, I was there. If people don't know, I was there. I was the director. I was the last director of the show. And I saw all of that stuff first. People from all over the world would come to show off their stuff on our show. And any television show that you ever saw where people were sitting around a desk talking about computers, they were all copying Stuart Chaffee. Stuart Chaffee did it first. It started as a local show, and the local nerds in the Bay Area would record it on VHS and mail it to their friends in Boston and in Austin and all over the country. And then the TV station started getting letters, not emails because Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet, getting physical letters that people would write and type sent to the station going, hey, will you please make this a national show? And that's why Stewart syndicated the show. At its peak, we were on 300 PBS stations around the country. I remember one time I was working in Amsterdam, and I was in the bathroom shaving, and all of a sudden I heard something, and I looked out at the TV, and Stuart Chaffee was on TV in Amsterdam. So, yeah, we should do a watch party. It might be kind of fun.
At least get it on Pluto. Like, everything comes with Pluto TV. They have a MASH channel. They have a CSI original channel. They have a channel for everything. If we can have Fail Army have its own Pluto TV channel, we can get Computer Chronicles. I think it's a thing.
Yeah, I don't know how to do all that legally, but it was a fun era. It was really fun to be a part of it, especially in retrospect.
And if you are, speaking of space, if you do want to see some more stuff, David Brady puts into the chat a really nice link to the channel of nasa.gov/live. Helps to check out the channel, so we should see that. Next question.
This one's from Andy Kokendorfer in VR, Florida, USA. What is your favorite lighting and image setup for corporate interviews? Short, broad, gold bounce card, quarter Promist on the lens?
Jason.
You know what? My favorite is a perfectly quiet outdoor arena where I've got a perfect, framing of the actual sun that is lighting the face perfectly. And that'll never happen. So I'd say standard AB lighting with a little bit of backfill.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this on the show before, but when you're setting up lighting for a face that's talking, the bigger the source, the better. Having a big source is very flattering on a lot of people. It makes sure that you're not looking overly dramatic. Your wrinkles aren't too accentuated. But the other thing is, in terms of visual style, it used to be that all of the corporate interviews were like this. And whenever we were talking to someone unnamed off the camera. And then every now and again, when they needed to cut out something somebody said, you'd see another shot that was at a slightly different angle. And then because they're cutting around things. That has really gone away. And now, especially with the rise of so many creators, whether it's on YouTube or TikTok or Reels or what have you, the direct address to the camera is much more powerful. It's also less comfortable for the talent because it's a skill. It needs to be practiced, that they need to make sure that they're getting good at because it feels a little odd. But I would argue that it feels unnatural to look straight down the barrel of the lens for the entire time because we don't do that when we talk to people. We want there to be an authenticity there. We want there to be the feeling of a personal connection, conversationality. The other thing is Promist on the lens. I don't think people want to see an overly stylized Hollywood, look like you're going back in time with a foggy, misty. People want to see crisp, sharp video, good definition. Ultimately, we're all in the business of communication. Chris can disagree with me, but ultimately we're all in the business of communication. And the more things that we put in between the person who's delivering the message and the person that's receiving the message, the more it feels artificial and disconnected. And especially with all the things that are happening in the age of generated video, there is a hunger for that authenticity. And I think the more human we make it, the better we're off. Jason?
Couldn't agree more. Just one real quick thing to add. Flat lighting and eye line aside is not used very frequently, but this is an optical illusion, right? The fact that my hand is not casting a shadow just means there's a ridiculous amount of light and it's really, really bigly sourced, if that makes sense.
Alexander?
I think like anything, there are general guidelines and best practices, but there's creative choice too from the director or whoever the lighting person, cinematographer, whatever it is, even for corporate stuff. Some people will say, well, never put a Promist filter, never put any kind of diffusion filter on it for corporate because you want it to look as sharp as possible. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it really all depends on the situation, what it calls for. For example, like I might make a creative choice if a company comes to me and says that they're let's just say hypothetically, very well-known company, and they're maybe going through a rebrand, and maybe they don't want to be seen as kind of a stodgy corporate, clinical type of company. Well, maybe I might put a slight diffusion filter on there to soften things. Maybe I might want to make the lighting a little more contrasty, a little more cinematic. Maybe I don't want them to look like a typical corporate video, like every single other corporate video. Why would I want my production to look exactly like all these other corporate videos? So again, it really is up to that individual who's producing it, and also have a conversation with the client, what they're looking for.
That's exactly it. And you bring up a good point, and so does Mickey in the chat. Bigger the source, always better, not necessarily. Alexander's got some points about other creative decisions that you can make. Ultimately, it's the context of what is the message that is trying to be delivered. And the choices that you're making in how you're choosing to light someone, in what you're choosing for lenses, in how you're choosing the framing, all of those things are contributing to the feeling that's behind the message that you're trying to get across. Chris, you've been playing with some lighting, I see.
I don't know what this flat lighting is that you're talking about. I think that it absolutely depends on what. No, so I want to tell you a quick little story here. I've been watching a lot of videos about the gold and silver trading world and all the stuff about it, and I got totally tricked the other day. I put on a video while I was working. I was sort of listening to it. I was kind of watching it, but mostly I was listening to it, and it was a great delivery. Like, it was really good, like really smooth and very natural, and like it was a long read. Somebody did a lot, it was good. And then I glanced over at it, and I looked for a second. I was like, that's all generated. It was all generated. It was like take photo, make say words filter, and I got totally tricked by it. And really quickly, when I started watching it, I started to get kind of skeeved out about it. Like, it was just weird. And there will be, if there is not already, there will be, I believe, a real backlash to polish. And I think that when you're in a situation that is more natural, more human, more less polished, less polished. I think that it will connect with actual human beings more than something that's too polished. And I think that's important to know when you're shooting, because you don't want to overproduce somebody. It's important to think about when you're editing. I get really turned off when producers say, oh, can you take the off at the beginning of that sentence? That's the way the guy talks. Leave him alone. There's certain times when you gotta let people be themselves. And it is the antithesis of the sort of YouTube jump cut, because somewhere along the way somebody said, make the people say things smoothly in a standardized cadence. I think you have to let people be human. And that also carries on. Sorry, Andy, back to your question. That carries over to the look. It shouldn't look perfect all the time. People will gravitate toward things that are a bit more natural, less AI, less perfection, less just let people be themselves. I can't sell that necessarily to the clients that I'm working for, but it's my own personal belief at this stage.
It's interesting. The conversation, even just in the last 6 or 7 minutes, has centered around getting the humanity back in whatever way it is. And what I like about it is that Andy's question was, what is your favorite? It wasn't what is the best. It is what is your favorite. And I think that the point of view and the perspective of the taste of everybody on this panel, including Chris, who's gone into WITSEC, I guess,
to anonymous guy mode.
That's what makes this such a great conversation, because everybody's different point of view helps, and discussing why we believe that, I think, helps us get to the meat of we're trying to get back to the humanity. That's the common theme I saw. Next question.
This question comes from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. What is Moltbot, and what does it mean for production?
Chris?
So Moltbot is basically, it's just kind of a plugin for Claude. And it basically, you give it permission to your computer. And it has all the permissions to your computer. And it can do anything on your computer that you can do. And you can imagine all the things that would be super helpful and super neat. You can also imagine the giant security holes and the dangerousness of doing it. It's also really expensive. We were playing with it yesterday in after hours and doing some stuff with getting it going and talking to mimoLive and having it do some things. And I think it was like in an hour, I think we had spent $10-11. And so like, if you're asking it to do anything, I feel like it's just that's gonna add up. And if you're not paying attention, you could, at the end of the month, your Claude bill could be $500-$700. And it just kind of does things in the background too. A lot of people have been talking about like how they aren't really doing anything, but all of a sudden their bill is like $10 from like not doing anything, from whatever it's doing in the background. So it's really cool. It's really neat. I don't know what its like future is because it's so expensive, because the things it can do is while really cool, in a production sense, I don't know how helpful it actually would be. Having an expert do the thing they know would probably be quicker and maybe even cheaper. So, yeah.
Jason?
Okay, this is harnessing the power of gods to do something that should never be done on localhost 127.0.0.1. Here's the graphical part to this. Now, keep in mind, your computer can absolutely look at anything. And again, this can be done in web browsers. If only somebody knew a whole bunch about networking, Tom Ferguson, to kind of back me up here. Localhost can be pulled from any active task, and it can be programmatically looked at as chatter that's just kind of, in the background. So this is a neat thing, a neat prospect, and a terrible idea.
Chris?
Yeah, I don't know anything, as you know. Just last night, I got a text message from our friend Alex Lindsay, and he goes, "Oh my goodness, you've been watching what's going on with ClaudeBot?" And I said, "Not really." And then I went and I grokked it. I like the grok, and it described it as AI with hands. And I was like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out." And that's all I needed to read. The fact that I guess apparently that it can reach out and do like real things with the stuff that you are. It just scared me. I got scared, so I turned it off.
AI's had problem historically with hands. Often the fingers aren't exactly where they are.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, good grief. Talk about throwing a wrench in a conversation. Can we move on, please? Let's get to the question that I posted it. Can we skip ahead to that one?
The only other thing that I'll mention about is the adage of, to err is human, but to really screw things up, you need a computer. Be very careful with all of these tools and to what you're giving them access and what you're allowing them to do. If we're not very intentional about where we're pointing the robot to go, and that's my moniker for all of the AIs in general, is just the robot. If you let the robot go and attack everything with abandon, we could get ourselves in trouble. Jason?
Last thing, just because it is downloaded locally does not mean it cannot be audited by your web browser.
Next question.
This question is coming from the QR code. Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California. Anyone else looking to get your NDI upgrade licenses? How are you dealing with the changes in this?
Chris?
You can't anymore. They've sunsetted that ability after the first of the year. You can no longer upgrade any NDI cameras. Basically, it's kind of a pain point for some of that existing product, maybe. But in the future, it's better in the future, because basically what they're saying is you can't ship a camera that's NDI ready. It either has it or it doesn't, and that's what it is. If you've purchased a license and haven't activated it, there's a mechanism to do that. But if you haven't purchased an upgrade license for an NDI ready camera, you're out of luck.
And so I saw, I think PTZ Optics that was offering a return or an exchange if you had bought that and hadn't activated it. Like there's some gray area where the different camera manufacturers are all handling this a little differently. So it's probably best practice too, if you're in a situation where you have something that isn't doing the job that you bought it for and you miss this window, reach out to that individual manufacturer support and see if they can maybe be a bridge, but not an NDI bridge. Next question.
This question comes in from David Arsenault in Bonaventure, Quebec. In mimoLive, when I'm using a scoreboard from a web page, I need to leave the web page open in order to keep it live. I didn't have to do that last year. Did I miss something?
Alexander?
Yeah, we're talking about the web browser source feature inside of mimoLive where you can paste a URL and bring that into your production. So that is a bug, and that has been fixed in newer betas. And it sounds, David, like you are a perfect candidate to join the official mimoLive Discord community because you would know about all these updates when they get released. I'm going to post a link in the Makana chat as well if you're not part of Discord. In fact, actually, as of 7:18 a.m. Pacific Standard Time this morning, version 6.16 B6 has just come out. So there's been lots of updates, new features, bug fixes to the web source. So you should maybe try out one of those betas, see if that fixes your issue.
Chris?
This is a comment to David and also to Alexander. Alexander, that was one of the best answers to an obscure question that I've ever heard on Office Hours. Bravo, well done. And David, you're lucky to have a peek into Alexander's brain hole. Awesome. Well done.
One other thing to check, Mickey brings up in the chat, to double check if you're using it as a browser source or a screen or window capture that may also have some influence on the problem. But definitely we appreciate Oliver in the community, not only being active here, but also having a Discord where there's its own server where there's all that conversation. Next question.
This question comes from Eduardo Augustine, Panama City. I'm interested in testing input routing with ZoomISO and the Zoom test calls. Is there a way to test this for free? mimoLive, ZoomISO, deprecated, VMix, any free options?
Jason?
I'm glad you asked because, turns out Google Gemini has been listening to Office Hours. And if you actually just Google your exact question, what you see is there are free trials for everything. And then here's the cool part. Instead of a standard test call, you can use an Office Hours global global test meeting, including the mimoLive link and our Zoom test, and then the native free routing. So, yep.
That's pretty slick. We made it into the LLM. Alexander?
That's actually a surprisingly accurate response from AI. I did not expect that. With mimoLive specifically, there is a totally free watermarked version that's not going to shut down on you. So you may want to try the free watermarked version. If you go into the once you sign into your Zoom account, there's a menu option at the top and it says join demo meeting. So what that AI response that Jason just mentioned is talking about, that's actually built into mimoLive. So when you click join demo meeting, it's going to join that meeting that has all these AI bots in there, and they're all talking so you can test their video and grab their ISO audio sources. So I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and thank you to our community for having that. I know that when I was doing the plumbing for a town hall event, I didn't have to hold people hostage on Zoom and say, hey, can you just leave this up and kind of like play some music in the background so I can check this? I could just have all of these different sources. I can say the script pretty much from memory now. That was an unintended side effect of just having it on loop all the time. But besides doing the testing with the Office Hours Global Zoom test meeting, you could also see if there's, whether it's in the morning show or in the evening show, if you want to volunteer and be on the back end for one of the live shows, that's another great way to experience kind of how all this stuff gets put together. But people have used specifically the Zoom test meeting in VMix, in Ecamm, in Mimo, and the stuff works really well. Next question.
This question comes from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. What's new in V3 H2R Graphics?
Jason.
Okay, there's a very long list, and Guy did include the web link. The thing that I really thought was super cool is the native QR integration. I asked him about this years ago, and there was a whole bunch of back and forth, and it looks like he finally found a place for it, which really makes me happy. Way to go, John Barker.
Yeah, kudos to this software for continuing to develop and continuing to get better. It's one of those things that if you haven't had the itch to go into Zoom Graphics Toolkit and do all of the customization on that end, that's another way to get graphics into your show. But what's happening on H2R Graphics is great for somebody, I think, call it a civilian. I don't know. It's a more approachable way if you're not a super technical engineer type to just start to play around and see what's possible. And kudos to John Barker for continuing to develop that. If you're curious on YouTube about how do I get more into office hours and how do I find out about this community, what's this chat they keep talking about? Go to officehours.global/join. And so officehours.global/join is where you can go to not only get into Makana, where you can not only ask questions, but vote on them, get into the chat, all the back and forth that happens there, but also that gets you into our Discord, gives you a link to our meeting on Sunday that's our more introspective, talking about the show. It's a little more inside baseball. There's a lot of great stuff in this community beyond just the show. So if you're watching this after the fact, officehours.global/join. We'd love to see you there. Next question.
This question comes in from Chris Fenwick in Emeryville, California. My wife uses an Android and wants earbuds for using at the gym. What are some recommendations from experience?
Tom.
Well, I like the Shox Bluetooth headsets. I'm using a set right now. It leaves your ears open so that you can keep situational awareness. They have a model called OpenSwim that's both IP68 waterproof, and if you don't even want to use your Android or iPhone, it has 32 gigs of memory, so it can hold MP3s and, listen to your podcast that way, even when you're swimming.
Chris?
Yeah, and just for the record, she's a very practical person. She thinks I'm nuts for paying the Apple tax. She doesn't want earbuds or whatever these are called. She prefers something over the ear but not behind the back. So if anybody has any suggestions, something you've actually used, don't just go to Google and go, oh, here's a pair that's $30, whatever. And you have a good recommendation, feel free to reach out to me on Discord and let me know.
I feel like I had the Power Beats 1 or 2 generations ago that went around the ear. They were wireless, but they didn't. So it was still individual wireless. There wasn't a wire between them, but that might fit the bill. I'm kind of with Tom though. The Shox, not the comms, but just the Open Runs or the Open Swims do a good job, and I'm pretty sure the Open Runs are on sale right now. I'm not sure if they have a new version coming out, but
yeah. And for the record, she thinks the cheap AirPods at $129 is ridiculously overpriced.
Oh,
so
okay, well, good. Jason,
yeah.
You've absolutely priced us out of anything that is markedly better than the cheapest Princess Leia headphones you can find that'll do this. That'll plug straight into her headphone.
She doesn't want that. Phone. She wants something small.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just saying, if anybody has any ideas, let me know. We can move on.
Open Run SE.
Oh wait,
How much are the Open Run SEs? Because that's a decent option.
Chris?
So I have a pair of Tozos, Tozo. They are cheap. They work fine. I use them for mowing the lawn. They're not over the ears. They're like the in ear. So I don't know if that will work, but they may have a version that's over the ear. Tozo is a brand that is unknown, but seems to be fine.
That's the one she wants, Chris.
Absolutely no lead.
Next question.
This question's coming in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Which roles in media and production do you believe are most at risk in the next 2 to 3 years? And which roles actually become more valuable because of AI?
Jason?
I think just speaking abstractly first, most people, especially professionals, underestimate the progress that will be made in 3 years and overestimate the progress that will be made in 3 months. So with that in mind, I think I won't answer the first part unless it involves an automated kind of workflow-based thing. If your job is repetition, then your job's in jeopardy. If you are answering large, complex, multifaceted, kind of executive decision problems, then yes, I think you're safe.
Yeah, I like the Michael Cioni from Strata. We've had him on the show a few times. His take on this is kind of drawing a line and making a distinction between creative or generative AI and utility AI. And I think the individuals who have maybe a more mundane, a more rote, a more repetitive job that figure out how to partner with an AI tool to amplify their abilities are going to be the ones who are threatening the people who are not trying to use those tools. And to me, it's really about the utilities that people are going to be able to build to do repetitive tasks are going to just take hours out of things. And the hope is that we take those now latent cycles of energy, of human creative potential energy, and we transfer that into a more creative task, into a less rote task. And so it's going to be messy as to what's in between. But the people who are, and I don't know if it's a specific role, but the specific people who are going to be more valuable in the next 2 to 3 years are those people who have figured out how to take their productive energy and their creative ideas and amplify them by using an AI tool to partner with, not to replace, but to amplify their efforts as another person. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. What did you have, CJ, that under the Zen of Lindsay, where your compensation directly correlates to the to the complexity of problems that you can solve? That to me just means, and if your compensation is zero, then you either don't have a job or you shouldn't be working for free.
Yeah, and we're also going to have to. We're going to be into a kind of a budget situation where not all these tools are going to be free. And so either managers are going to have to encourage and empower people to have access to some of the heavy iron tools that maybe are a $100 or $200 a month tool, or the people who can use those tools are going to have to say, okay, but I can accomplish X. Like I can give you much more return on your investment than what the $200 is going to cost. This is how I want you to move forward, and then convince that manager who maybe isn't on the early adopter curve to go ahead and get behind them. Chris?
I believe AI replacing human beings is kind of like templates replacing graphic artists. Okay? So if you want a cool looking lower third in your video, yeah, you can go, there's a bazillion template sites where you can download a template, but then you have a client that says, yeah, can you make those little rounded corners a little bit bigger? And if you don't know how to get into the computer and change it, then you can't keep that person happy. So if you want to keep a job in our industry, what you want to do is you want to find that person and work for that person. You want to work for the top 1%, the top 5%. If you just exist in the bell curve of video production, you're going to get replaced by a computer.
Next question.
This question is coming from Chris Fenwick in Emeryville, California. Let's talk about Final Cut 12!
This is going to be awesome. This is going to be
Exclamation mark.
Chris?
So if people don't know, Apple just released what I'm calling Final Cut Creator. That's the subscription version of Final Cut. I am still going to use what I am now dubbing Final Cut Lifetime You buy it once, you get to use it forever, $300. There's currently, they have both, and you can choose what you want. There's an advantage to the subscription. Keep in mind, we used to spend $1,200-1,500 for Final Cut. The editing system I owned before that was $30,000. So $300 is super cheap, but to some people, $300 is still a lot of money. And if it is, and if you want to edit in Final Cut, you can for $12 or $13, whatever, you can get Final Cut for a month. Actually, I think you can get it for free and just play with it. So it's a lower barrier to entry, and you get additional content. I don't need the additional content, so I'm not going to subscribe. But mostly, we have these two platforms now that apparently you can open up in between each other. You have, like I said, what I'm calling Final Cut Creator, the subscription version, and Final Cut Lifetime. And I'm dubbing those terms right now, and that is what we will use. Everybody will use from now on. And it happened here first. Actually, it happened on Twitter last night. I posted those names on Twitter. So that's what we're calling it. But it's cool. That visual search, totally awesome. I'm currently working on a project where I'm pulling shots out of a bunch of home tour videos that we've produced. And if I search for kitchen, it shows me all the kitchens from all the houses. If I search for toilet, it shows me all the toilets from all the houses. It's pretty amazing. Awesome.
Jason?
Visual search, and I've only done that in the trial. I haven't done it in the lifetime version. I do have both. Is absolutely awesome. It is just absolutely spectacular. And if that is there for those who bought Final Cut, standalone, truly
Lifetime.
Okay, I'm
Lifetime?
never going to get that right. Lifetime is a channel.
But when you say standalone, what you really mean is Final Cut Lifetime, right?
Yeah, what I really mean is
Just
don't interrupt me, Fenwick. I'm in flow.
I'm not interrupting. I am supporting you.
Okay, well,
flow away.
Your support has ended my answer.
I think about the number of videos that I made where I kind of had an idea or even if it wasn't purely for something that was designed to be cut and edited. Like I gave a tour of a building once, and I always found that I would not have time to give someone another tour, but I wanted to show them one really cool specific thing. So one time I took the hour-and-a-half tour that I was giving and I filmed the whole thing as I was walking around. I put a phone on a gimbal. I was with a person who would put up with me noodling around with technology while I was talking and let the camera get out of the way. The thought now that I could take that 90-minute clip and not have to scrub through it and remember the order that I introduced things is pretty powerful. So I'm excited to play with it. I have something I'm going to try to make next week that I will give this a shot. Chris?
So not only visual search, but also does transcript search. So if you were talking while you were doing it, it'll go find the words for it. You do have to, if you're working on a legacy library, something that you had before this version, you do have to scan the stuff. It's not horribly slow. It's actually pretty quick. But in the import mode, there is a checkbox for yes, analyze for visual search, yes, analyze for transcript search. So it'll do that. Also, it makes your library imperceptibly larger. It doesn't add any weight to the files at all, nothing to talk about. And I will say that there are two really good videos that I would go and watch if you want to learn about it. First of all, Ripple Training, Mark and Steve, they're gods among men, and they did a 45-minute walkthrough. And especially Mark did a thing where he went hard into the paint on the visual search, and he explained how well it works and how to work it and how to get better results. Also, there is a function in the transcript search where you can say, find exactly what I'm looking for, or find stuff related to this. And one of the samples I saw, and I think it was Mark's, where they did a video, and it could have been, and the other video to watch is Jen Yeager. She's awesome. I love her. I want to meet her. She's really she's a gifted educator. Anyway, it was a video, it was a long interview about the YMCA. And if you say search, and this was in Jen's video, if you search for YMCA, you're going to get like a handful of returns on that. But then she changed it to things related to YMCA, and it found examples in the voiceover or in the interview where the guy says, well, the other day we were at the Y and we went swimming, and it recognized that the Y meant YMCA. So by expanding the transcript search to related to YMCA, she got many more hits on the search. So anyway, it's super cool. Jen Yeager and Ripple Training, of course, Mark and Steve, good friends. Those guys killed it. So go watch those, please.
Jason?
Chris, has this version made any inroads as to differentiating between speakers? I mean, in the past, we've used automated ways to do that. And I'm wondering if it's changed at all, if you've even had a chance to look yet.
I haven't gotten that deep into it yet. That's a good question. I don't even know how I would do that. I will tell you that 99% of the stuff that we do is guy on a chair, roll camera, ask a question. I guess there is an interviewer off camera. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I don't even know how it would delineate who's saying what. Good question. I don't know.
Next question.
This question's from Peter Belvin in Houston, Texas. Roland UVC-02 wanting to use it to do some ambient noise reduction, but after a little while it seems to be considering spoken audio to be ambient audio, and it filters me out too. Are others seeing this happen too? What's the dollar fix for this?
Alexander?
Yeah, I have one of these, and I've tested the noise reduction, and I'm sad to report that it's not great. It did get a little better with the newer firmware. So, Peter, the first thing I would do is I would suggest you go to Roland's website and make sure that you have System Program version 2.01 installed. They claim to have made some improvements to the algorithm there for the noise reduction feature. But I found that it was pretty much useless other than on the absolute lowest noise reduction settings. So your mileage may vary. It's nowhere near as good as Noise Assist or the C-Suite noise reduction plugin from Universal Audio, which requires their own DSP. You need an Apollo interface to be able to do that, but there are much higher end solutions than that.
Jason?
Peter, I've never used the Roland, but I'm going to give you a let's take a step back and see what we can do about this answer. Get a white noise generator, put it on your phone, turn up the volume all the way, find out where your noise is coming from. Is it coming from under a door, in the back of the room? Is it coming from a window that isn't properly treated? Put the white noise thing there and turn it up just loud enough so that it's blocking whatever you're trying to obscure, and then see if the Roland is doing or can do a better job, filtering out the versus the complexities of the adaptabilities of the fanciful stuff, and give that a shot.
Next question.
This one's from David Arsenault in Bonaventure, Quebec. Using mimoLive or an ATEM, I'm trying to find the best settings to stream hockey in 60p. I'm considering to stream remotely with a PTZ in the arena through VPN to my studio. Any suggestions?
Jason?
David, unless you have the world's fastest internet, the world's fastest eyes, the world's fastest joystick, I don't think you can meaningfully stream hockey with anything other than the widest possible shot via VPN. But I defer to Chris.
Chris?
Yeah, so this is a complicated question, and I'm not entirely sure what you're actually asking, but PTZ control, unless you're spending multiple thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, you're talking about like Mark Roberts control arms and stuff like that, is going to be really, really, really hard with hockey. It just moves too fast. It's too fast of a movement. You're gonna try and follow it. You'll move your controller, and the puck's gonna be gone by the time the camera gets there. If you're talking about, like you mentioned, mimoLive or an ATEM, do you have one or the other, or are you looking at one or the other? When you're talking about sports, one of the big things about sports is replay, and especially in hockey, having the ability to replay. And if you want to have replay with an ATEM, it becomes much more complicated. They have a solution that's hokey at best. It might work for you if you have all the components. mimoLive, I don't think, has replay. So that's another kind of thing when you're looking at this. In terms of like just, the settings, like you got it, 1080p 60. You want 60p when you're streaming sports. Anything less than that, you get too much motion blur. It's hard to watch. So 60p, 1080. It's a pretty open-ended question, but PTZ in venue would be really, really, really hard without really good equipment. PTZ without good equipment over the internet, no. You're asking for trouble.
Jason?
So, in a word, was my quick take mostly right?
Yeah.
I also have to comment that not only does Alexander acknowledge that David's coming from Quebec and then takes the French pronunciation of the last name, but also it is a Canadian submitted question about PTZ streaming of a hockey game, and I love everything about that. If you're finding office hours valuable, there are a couple ways that you can show your support, give some value back to us. You can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can reach out to volunteer either during the show or around the show. And one of the most impactful ways that you can contribute to the community is by going to officehours.global/donate, helping us fundraise so that we can keep trying new things, trying new platforms, investigating some emerging technologies. It's not all free, and most of our support comes from all of us. So we appreciate every bit of that. officehours.global/donate. Next question.
This one's from Tom Ferguson from Phoenix, Arizona, here on the panel. Does the panel have any new discoveries in the podcast arena?
Tom?
I just discovered a video-first podcast that I really enjoy. It's called The Rest is Science. It has Michael Stevens and Hannah Fry, two brilliant people. This week they were talking about hamster wheels and rats. And they were talking about the rats getting on the hamster wheel and doing some exercise, but they wondered if there was a study, and there was, if the rats were doing that just for exercise within their cage. So they put some out in the wild, and they found out wild rats would come up and they'd get on that hamster wheel and go like crazy. Well, they also did the segue then to talk about humans and talk about what is our hamster wheel. And they decided that the internet was definitely our hamster wheel. And I have to agree.
You're spinning the wheel with all of the doom scrolling, I suppose. Jason?
Depends on what you mean by new. This is not a new podcast, but it might be new to you. Mickey recommended this a long time ago, and I've continued to enjoy it. This is the Tonebenders podcast by Sound Ideas, and there are quite a few episodes. The episodes are short and accessible and straightforward and easy to understand, and you'll learn a lot about sound design, and all the little idiosyncrasies of, various sound positions in a real-world, full-scale Hollywood sound production line.
And if you are passionate about sound and also passionate about music, a great show is called Strong Songs. The guy that puts that out, his name is Kirk Hamilton, and he does a phenomenal job of doing really deep dives into the history of just really great songs, not only from how they were written and what was going on kind of historically at the time when it was when and how that song was written, but also he's a musician. He's a music educator, and so he really gets into the nuts and bolts of how things are working and why they're working. And then part of the exercise that he does when he puts that show out is he actually learns how to play the song either on horns or on keys, and ends up making stumbling upon some really cool musicality or musical things that are going on because he's actually going through the process of learning it. He puts in a ton of work, and it's a great listen on a road trip. Chris?
This has nothing to do with podcasts, but back to Final Cut 12, the new beat detection is amazing.
I forgot to say that. Yes, it is. It's incredible.
Super cool.
So is this music beats or dramatic
so that's
beats?
kind of podcasty, right, Tom? That's like, you got to cut music.
Definitely.
It's amazing.
So is this? But it's music.
I'll give you guys a
beats,
demo
not
after the
dramatic
show
beats?
if you want. What's that?
Music beats, not dramatic beats, right? It can't.
Correct.
It's not that good
You
yet?
give it a backing track. It says, here's where you cut. Here's
Right,
where
it's
you
not-
cut. Here's where you cut.
So it's not saying like beat. It's not that good yet.
No. Listen. So it finds
He's
your
messing-
measures, but it also indicates where the music is changing in mood. Like, okay, this is like
The bridge. Yeah.
after the show. I'll show you. It's wicked cool. I can show you now if you want, but
I mean, is it up?
Is it-
I will insert demo here. That's fine.
insert demo here. Okay, so here's a cut of music.
Better not
See
be
this?
copyrighted.
Disable beat detection. So that's the music. When I enable the beat detection, and there's a button way up here, this little button right here, boop, 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 on, off. So you could see how it has thin lines and thick lines? The thick lines are big hunks in the music. So if I take this music here, hold on. Can you hear it?
No, perfect.
Okay, so if I want to cut this section out, I'm just going to use the range tool and say, cut from this thick line to that thick line, hit delete. Oops, I should have put it all in a little groupy thing, Command G, and then do range tool and go boom to boom. This is Premium Beat. I own the rights to this.
Wow. We still can't hear it, but I see what it's doing.
No,
If I had
but
a
that's
nickel
fine.
For every time that I had to, you're sitting there like waiting for when am I going to hit the space bar? So that
It's
Yeah,
great
so-
information. I just don't want it flagged.
So here's the other thing. So here's a good music cutting tip. You don't always have to cut from the beginning of a measure to the end of a measure. You can sometimes, if you cut on what I call the 2s and 3s, so you go 2 beats from this measure, and then beats 3 and 4 from the other measure. So what I'm going to do here, each one of these lines. Oh, and as I zoom in more, I get more lines. You see that? Mm-hmm. So here is beats inside the measure, the dotted lines.
Yeah, it's picking up on the quantization.
I wouldn't use that word. I'm just saying it's super cool. You got to play with it.
All right, David
Super
Brady has in the chat requested and is getting some love for it that we need to bring this into after hours for a more in-depth demo, and then we could play whatever music we want in there. So we'll check that out. Chris, thank you for bringing that in.
But I
One
want
more
to point
thing.
out, I have the rights to play this music. This is fair music to play. Blah blah blah. Move on.
Next question.
Bananas for scale.
This one is from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, USA. With Liminal app serial numbers going away next month, how do you provision ZoomISO from your Zoom admin panel? We have Zoom events. Thanks.
Jason.
That is a great question, Andy. The Liminal team is extremely responsive. I think you should just ask them. And if they say the right answer is to pay for it, if you have Zoom apps or Zoom, things coming up, pay for it.
Yeah, and Andy's got Zoom events. So if you have a Zoom sessions and events license, you do have access to all of the Liminal tools as part of that subscription. The key is the person that is. I understand that the person that's on the account needs to be a hub host. Needs to be the hub host in order for them to have access to all of those back-end tools. But we'll follow up with Andy and try to get something posted in the Zoom channel on Discord if it's not there already. Thank you. All right, that's going to do it for our Q&A Friday. Thank you, everyone, for coming in today. Thank you to our panel for bringing all of their expertise and even an impromptu demo. Nothing like a Friday. Also, thank you to our producers for asking such great questions. If we didn't have time for your question today and it was in Mukana, it'll be back in your notes. If you asked it via the QR code, we'll start getting those into the show tomorrow morning for our Saturday Q&A. Finally, thank you to our incredible back-end crew who are waking up in the wee small hours, getting us all tested, getting everything set up, making sure that we look and sound great. We owe a great deal to the work that these ladies and gentlemen do every day, and we really do appreciate it. The Tualac Traversal today, if we would have had to do this in person go around, would have been 35,000 miles. That's 57,000 kilometers, 278 million bananas for scale. for scale. See you in after hours.
Bananas equal SM58s.
That's a short banana.
Hey, seriously, I will
That's
go
one
into.
durable SM58.
I'm going to go into after hours as soon as this is over, and I'll answer, a couple minutes worth of questions.
But
It's
if you
super
wind
cool,
him
though.
up, it'll be a couple hours. Wind him up, wind him up,
I
wind
could-
him up. You'll
I
learn a
could
lot
easily
about
go.
Final Cut, guys.
I could easily go a couple hours. You're right. But dude, beat detection is the bomb.
Dude, I want
It's
you on.
great.
I want you on a Tuesday night. I think we need to do a Chris
Yes,
Final Cut.
yes.
And the edit that I just did, I did not rehearse that. I was like, I think it'll work. Boom.
No, you
Like that.
you really should do a
I haven't
Tuesday,
even listened
Chris.
to that cut of music yet. A Tuesday night.
And boom.
Who does Tuesday night?
You will one Tuesday night.
Tuesday
Bye, guys.
Focus Final Cut with Fenwick. How many F's can we throw in the sentence?
Focused Final Cut with.
Tuesday
How many
Focus on
F
Final Cut
words
with
can we
Fenwick.
do?